Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. If you recall, our last journey left Dante and Virgil, well, dealing with some pretty awful odors,
Right.
which was kind of a fitting intro to the deeper parts of hell.
Exactly. A sensory warning, you could say.
Right. And this is our 12th deep dive. Can you believe it? Out of 100 cantos in Dante's Inferno, we're still on this amazing journey, always trying to find, those little nuggets of wisdom for our own lives.
Indeed. And today we're right on the edge of the seventh circle. This is where the violents are punished, and we're focusing specifically on the 12th canto.
And the goal, as always, isn't just the story, but what it tells us. What insights can we pull from this about violence, its consequences, how it echoes in our own journeys?
Precisely. So Dante and Virgil are descending, but it's not an easy path.
No, they hit this, shattered landscape. What happened there?
It's quite dramatic, actually. Dante connects it directly to the earthquake that supposedly shook hell itself when Christ died.
Wow, so the impact reached even down there.
That's the powerful image Dante paints. It suggests this huge cosmic event, its ripples felt everywhere, setting a really intense stage for the circle of violence.
Okay, and there's a guard at this broken entrance, right? A familiar face from myth.
Yes, the Minotaur. Part man, part bull. A symbol of bestial rage.
How did they get past him?
Virgil uses his wits. He doesn't fight it head on. He taunts the Minotaur, pokes at its rage, makes it sort of lose control.
Ah, clever. Distraction.
Exactly. While it's consumed by anger, they slip past. It's an early hint that, reason can sometimes navigate brute force.
Okay, so they make it past the Minotaur and into the first ring of the seventh circle. What do they find?
They find Phlegethon. It's a river, but it's filled with boiling blood.
Boiling blood. Seriously.
Seriously, this is where those who are violent against others are punished. Murderers, tyrants, plunderers, they're all submerged in it.
That's incredibly graphic. The contrapasso again, I assume.
Absolutely. It's Dante's core concept of justice. You spilled blood violently in life.
That you're stuck in boiling blood for eternity. Got it.
And they can't just climb out, either.
Who stalks them?
Centaurs. Half man, half horse creatures, armed with bows and arrows. They patrol the banks.
Like guards.
Exactly. They make sure each sinner stays submerged to the correct depth, deeper for worse violence, shallower for less severe acts. It's a grim hierarchy of punishment.
Wow. But Virgil manages to get help from one of them. That seems odd.
It does, but Virgil explains their purpose, and he specifically asks for help from Nessus, one of the centaurs.
Nessus. Wasn't he killed by Hercules?
The very same. But here, he's tasked with carrying Dante across the river of blood. Seems even in hell, sometimes you need a guide.
Okay, so Nessus carries Dante. Does he point anyone out? Any famous sinners?
Oh, yes. As they cross, Nessus identifies several figures. He points out Guy de Montfort.
Who was he?
He famously murdered Prince Henry, King Edward VI's cousin, inside a church during Mass, a sacrilegious act that shocked Europe. Dante even claims his heart still drips blood onto the Thames.
Yikes. Who else?
We see Attila the Hun, known as the Scourge of God for his vast destruction, Pyrrhus, another famously brutal king, and then there's an Alexander.
Alexander the Great.
Well, that's debated. It could be him, or perhaps Alexander of Pherae, a known tyrant. Dante leaves it a bit ambiguous, but the point is, these are figures defined by their violence.
Okay, a real rogues gallery. So thinking about our journey, our lives, what are the lessons here? What can we take away from Canto 12?
Well, there are a few key things, I think. First, that landslide image is powerful. It shows how violence doesn't just hurt people, it shatters things, creates lasting chaos, changes the landscape.
You can see that in history, or even personal lives sometimes. Big conflicts leave scars.
Exactly. Second, the Minotaur and the Centaurs, these half-beast figures, they represent how violence can degrade us. It pushes us away from reason towards our more base, animalistic instincts.
That's a sobering thought. It dehumanizes.
It can, yes. Then there's the whole depth in the river thing. It suggests that even within the category of violence, there are degrees of guilt, of responsibility. Not all violent acts are equal in consequence.
So nuance even in hell.
Right. And finally, seeing figures like Attila reminds us that the consequences of violence ripple through history, affecting generations.
So even though it's a depiction of hell, it's actually holding up a mirror to the real-world impact of violence. Its destructive power, its dehumanizing potential, its historical weight.
Precisely. Dante's journey through this canto gives us a framework, really, to think about violence in our own world, in our own lives.
It really makes you think. Considering that boiling river, those bestial guards, how do we spot that dehumanizing slide towards violence in ourselves or society? And what kind of earthquakes, maybe historical events, or even personal crises have shifted how we understand violence and its fallout. Lots to chew on there.
Definitely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our 12th deep dive out of 100. Join us next time as Dante and Virgil venture deeper into the seventh circle.